And off we go. Okay, I think we're good today. So, hello everyone, and welcome back to Facebook and Instagram and all of the social media that was not doing what it's supposed to be doing an hour ago. So, we couldn't start our live stream on time, which I apologize for. But I'm so happy that we are here today and we are going to talk about a CV or a resume in this live stream. My name is Hani, and I am the Education USA advisor in the Fulbright Commission. And today there was also a little change in the speakers, department. So welcome Riley, our Fulbright grantee and an English teaching assistant in Kladno, is it right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, yeah, let's start. Let's start. I will briefly introduce Education USA for those of you who are not familiar, because I know there are many new faces. So, you guys, Education USA is a network that provides free and accurate information about study opportunities in the United States. So, if you are currently in your high school and studying in the US is your dream and you just don't know where to start, or you don't know if you have what it takes, please let me know at Education USA Advising Center. And I am so happy to help you and walk you through all the steps. So we can go to the next slide, I believe, please. And the next one too. That's fine. Thank you. So the advising center is in Prague, but here is my email address, theadvisor@fulbright.cz. So feel free to send me an email or send me a DM on social media because it's working now, and I'll be happy to get in touch and send you some follow-up steps. Also, you can visit our American centers that are all around the Czech Republic, and they can give you some basic information as well. Lastly, before I turn it over to Riley, I'd like to show that our free services are consultations, so one-on-one or group advising. We also have a library full of new SAT prep books, and we do these live streams and webinars and in-person events. So you can definitely join, and everything is free of charge for you. So just follow our social media under the handle Education USA Czech, and you will definitely not miss any of our events that we have. And now over to you, Riley. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. So the lovely Zoe Barani is actually the person who put this PowerPoint presentation for all of you Czech students. And so I'm just here to relay her messages. But just to introduce myself a little bit, I, like Hani said, am a ETA in Kladno. I grew up in Salt Lake City, Utah. Some of you have probably heard this same exact spiel a couple times, but I graduated this past May with degrees in peace and conflict studies and sociology, and I'm planning to attend graduate school in the United States after this year ends. So I just want to move in right immediately to what is a CV. So a CV it stands for a curriculum vitae. And it just is a document that you put all your compliments, all your achievements in so that other people can get to know you a little bit. It's not supposed to be intimidating, but it can be a lot. So it feels like a crazy adventure to put your entire life out on a piece of paper,
Mhm.
but like I said, it shouldn't be intimidating. It's just to get to know you. It's for people who want to see you for jobs or for academic fields in the United States specifically. So what Zoe has here is you'll be asked to provide a CV when applying for jobs in the European Union or in the academic field in the US. So it has a lot of different purposes. You can use it in different spaces, but primarily for you as future students in the United States, anytime you're trying to apply for scholarships or a research position at your university, these are the times that you'll use your CV. So things that you always need to include on this CV are your contact information, your education, your work experience. You don't need to talk about your pets. Sorry about Rigby. But some other things that you can include that are helpful are awards that you've received, leadership positions you've had, volunteer work, skills, interests. So, for example, if you are a member of your orchestra at your school, or you have put together dances and balls and charity events, those are all things that people want to know and want to learn about you.
Mhm.
Your job experience doesn't have to be a lot. They just want to see that you've been working towards goals and you have a clear future in front of you and you want to learn and grow. Yeah.
Mhm.
So here is an example. It's a very simple CV, and it has, you can see in the top left, the name of the person, the address, their contact information, and your email. So it's very similar to a resume if you've ever done a resume before. The
Mhm.
main difference between a resume and a CV is usually a resume is only a couple pages, two max. A
Mhm.
CV is everything you've ever done. And so you're throwing it all on here to get as much information as you can, which again can seem intimidating, but once you've started it, it's not that hard to keep adding to it over the years. I think I've had the same CV since I was a freshman in college. So you can just keep adding and really it like this little example, it doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be long.
Mhm.
You can use things that you think are applicable to the position that you're applying for. So maybe teaching experience is something that they're really interested in, and
Mhm.
those are the things you want to focus on. You can change it or highlight specific things that you think the position that you're applying for is interested in.
I actually see also a big difference from what we are used to in the Czech Republic, because normally we would include a picture there and sometimes even a birth date, like when we were born. And that has changed a lot. And I see that this is quite boring, I have to say. So,
I
uh,
agree.
how do you make it special so that people would want to read it? Like, what can you do extra so that people will read it?
Yeah, no, that's a fantastic question that I think is really important. So in the US, the reason that we don't include a picture and we don't include a birth date is we don't want anyone to be discriminated against.
Mhm. Mhm.
So if you are a certain ethnicity or you were born a certain year, you might not be as likely to get a job based off of perceived experience or intellect, and that's not fair. So that's why we don't put pictures or birth dates usually.
Mhm.
As for this being a very plain example, it is. It's a really boring kind of basic example, and you can make it pretty. You can make it colorful. You can have fun fonts on it. It doesn't have to be this basic. You can show a little personality with it.
Mhm.
I personally really like Canva. I'm sure a lot of people in the Czech Republic also use Canva. Um, but you also need to remember the most important thing on your CV is the information. So
Mhm.
if you're using really cutesy cursive font, but you can't really read it, that's going to detract from what you actually want to share. So some things that I always say when I'm talking about design
Mhm.
is make sure you're using at least 10-point font because anything smaller, if you print it out, you won't be able to read it.
Mhm.
So I would stick with 12, where it says teaching assistant, University at Albany, and those kind of smaller headers, those should be 12 minimum.
Mhm.
Um, 10 if you're trying to squeeze every single detail, but like I said, CVs can be as long as you want, so it's not a big deal. But just make sure that information is the main focus, if that makes sense.
It does. Thank you.
Of course. So what's the difference between a resume and a CV? I mentioned before that CVs are all the information, whereas resumes, you're kind of trying to squish who you are into just a couple pages.
Mhm.
Um, the resume is for just job positions typically, whereas a CV is mostly for academics.
Mhm.
So again, if you're applying to a scholarship, research, maybe there's a specific class that's opening up at your university that you're really interested in. They might request a CV from you.
Mhm.
Um, So jobs versus school, that's usually the main difference when it comes to these. And then the last bullet point that Zoe had was short descriptions versus very, very detailed. So if I'm talking about an experience that I had, I want to tell you as much information as I can about how this is applicable to what you want me to do.
Mhm.
For example, for Fulbright, if I was talking about an English teaching job that I'd done before, I'd say I worked with these groups of people during this time period. I started these projects. These were the activities that I created. That way, it's more information for the person to understand you better.
Mhm.
Resumes, people are just kind of looking at it, glancing over it to understand if you're a good candidate. This is, I want to know who you are without even interviewing you. So I think a good way to look at it is a CV is your interview. So say what you can on the paper.
Mhm. Does it also go hand in hand with a motivation letter? Because usually when you write a resume, sometimes you have to also write a not a a motivation letter so that, because you only had like 1 to 2 pages on your resume, then you can kind of talk more and explain more why you are the best fit in the motivation letter, right?
Yes. So there's motivation letters, there's cover letters, and there's so many different types of things that you can describe yourself. And usually one of those two will go hand in hand with one of these.
Mhm.
So you might have to do a motivation letter, a cover letter on top of these,
Mhm.
but they're they're more about storytelling. This
Mhm.
is more about information.
Okay.
So names, dates, places, whereas that is this is who I am. I really want to work here. I'm really excited. I'm passionate.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, that's a narrative versus just kind of a word vomit of everything that you've ever done. Does that?
It
Yeah.
does. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, good.
Cool.
If
Great.
there's more questions about that, I'm happy to answer.
Yeah, guys, if you do have questions, our comment section is live and I have it right here. So if you are watching and I see that some of you are watching, please feel free to post a question and we can make something clearer.
Yes, please. So here are some of Zoe's tips, and I'll add a couple as well for writing a CV. She said, think about the length. How long do you really want this to be? You could have it be 10 pages, but is that really feasible for you?
Mhm.
Probably not. You want to make sure that there's not too much information. I know I just said it's as much information as you can think of, but do you want someone sitting there and getting bored reading your paper, or do you want them to be really engaged and want to ask you more questions? So you can always sit down with someone and say, is this too long? Is this too short? And it's okay to do a couple drafts. Usually when you're doing this, you're going to need to make it more than once. This isn't just a one-time thing. Include all of your work experience. So even if you think, oh, they won't care that I did this, or they're not going to be interested in this part-time job that I had, those things do show skills and they show hard work and discipline. And so don't negate what you've done in the past. They're credible work, and you should be proud of yourself for that, and other people will be too. Think about structure. So you always want to put your most important information at the top. That's because they'll see it and they'll get excited and they'll want to learn more about you. Or if they just pick up your resume, glance or your CV and they glance at it, then they can see that really interesting fact at the top. So it's giving you the best opportunity of them continuing to read. Um, Within each section, write your experiences in chronological order. So that means if you did one job in 2019 and another in 2020, make sure that you put it in that specific order so that they can see, oh, when they were in high school, they did this and then moved to this. It kind of helps other people draw a map in their head of who you are. And again, tells your story a little bit through a paper. Consider your audience. So Zoe said, like a resume, you should tailor your CV for a specific audience. What does the school or job you are applying for value? So, for example, in university, I started out as a business major. So my CV when I started out as a business major looked very, very different than when I was a humanities major.
Mhm.
I talked a lot about my marketing skills and abilities and the customer service that was part of my jobs. Whereas in humanities, I talked about the conversations and the academics that I focused on and the classes that I took. So you really want to see what will they care about? What will be the things that they want to know? What are the skills that they'll focus in on? Um, and again, if you have no idea, that's okay. You can ask someone else and they might say, well, what are you trying to do? Are you trying to go into art? Well, tell us about the art skills that you've developed. Things like that will help you as you're going through. And then talk to someone in your field. Ask someone in your field how to structure it. Ask if anyone is willing to share a sample with you and find examples or samples online. I did this a lot when I was applying for scholarships because certain fields demand that you do different things. So for business, their CVs look a lot like a resume, whereas humanities and education, they want it to be as many pages as you can. So they will say, okay, we don't care if it's 20 pages, put every single thing you've ever done down onto your CV. And so it's different and that's okay, but ask someone because it's helpful and it will change how you're going to focus on your CV.
I'm
Yeah.
going to throw in a very useful resource, and it's called College Essay Guy. And it's not guide, but guy, like a person. And this dude is wonderful, and he can explain things and he can give you examples. So, one of those resources that you can find online is a website called College Essay Guy. And if you just type in a resume or CV or motivational letter or cover letter, it will definitely walk you through that step by step, giving examples. So check that out for sure.
Yeah. And I would say if you don't know anyone in that field, it's okay too. You can ask other people at the university who are students, they might know how. Or if you do have a college advisor or someone like Honey, they'll connect you with those resources. They can show you where to find those people. So just don't be afraid to ask, even for the first step. That's okay.
No, I totally second that because I remember writing my first resume and I was like, I don't know what to do. And it's going to be so embarrassing that in my, I don't know, 18 years old, like, I don't know how to write this. And people were so supportive. So, guys, just like, there is no stupid questions. Please let me know. And I'm so happy to help. Yeah.
I'll
Mhm.
even say, even now, I still ask people how to write specific resumes. When I was applying for Fulbright, I redid my resume and I asked like 4 or 5 different people, is the spelling right? Does the format look okay? Did you enjoy reading it? So it's something that you start learning about now, but you're going to keep doing even into your adult years. So
Yeah.
get used to it because you shouldn't be embarrassed. It's just something that everyone does.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So some more tips, make it easy to read. Like I had mentioned before, 12-point font.
Mhm.
Zoe specifically says Times New Roman font. Um,
Mhm.
you don't have to, in my personal opinion, use Times New Roman. If you want it to be very clear, very professional, for
Mhm.
some fields, this is exactly what they want. In some, you can be a little bit more creative, especially if you're in a more artsy area. Um,
Mhm.
I will say 1 inch margins, at least have a little bit space on each side. It doesn't have to be exactly 1 inch, but these are good guidelines if you have no idea how
Mhm.
to do it. If it's a little bit different, that's okay. Space between each section. I will say this is an important one because each section, if it's all squished together and you can't read it, how is anyone going to know what's happening? bullet points make things easier to read. I mean, just like on this PowerPoint, it's pretty easy to see each step and understand what information is being told to you. So be consistent. Zoe says having a clean, organized CV will increase the chances that your future employer will read over the entire document. So if you choose one font, stick with that font. Don't use 17 different fonts, or maybe you put a period at the end of one sentence and you don't put one on another sentence. Another example would be your dates. Maybe you write it the American way, where it's month, day, year. And then for the next area, you do the more European way. Doesn't matter which one you choose, but make sure they're all the same. Otherwise, it gets a little confusing for the person who's reading it, and it's just no fun. Zoe's example is if you bold the title, bold every single title. And then this last one, carefully edit. You want to show that you're professional, no errors, make sure to proofread, and then ask a family or friend or family member to look over it. So I miss things all the time when I redo my resume. And it can be the tiniest little thing. Like I said, that period that you didn't realize you put at the end of the sentence, and every other sentence didn't have one. So sometimes it's helpful just to have another set of eyes look at it, because it's like a word that you've looked at for too long and it starts to not feel like a word anymore. Sometimes your resume just doesn't feel like a document at a certain point, and you're just staring at it, hoping that you can find the mistakes, but you can't even tell what's going on. So it's good just to have another person with fresh eyes say, yeah, I'm really engaged in this. Here's a couple more examples that Zoe has. Again, very professional, very basic. If you need some uh, guidelines, these are really good. Hani, I'm sure, can show you some other ones that you might find a little bit more interesting. I can show you mine if that's something you're interested in as well. But the main takeaways from both of these examples are they're very clear. You have all the information from the different places that they were, the dates, they're consistent, and the font is the same. Like I said, it's consistent. So yeah. Any questions, any thoughts about anything that I've said?
I actually don't see any questions right now because I just think that this was enough theory. Like this is something you just need to listen to once, and now it's up to you guys. You have to create
Yes.
your first draft, send it to us. There is Zoe's email address, there is my email address. Share your first draft with us, and we are happy to work specifically on your example, improve it, make it the best version of, the CV or resume you can put together. But now it's really the time to start working on it. You have the basics, you know what to include, how to write it, how it's supposed to look like, and just like make it yours, own it. And if you need any consultation, any advice, there are three people right now. Zoe's not here, but she's here in the
She's here.
community. Let us know. We are super excited to work with you, and don't worry, like it's gonna be all right. So thank you, Riley. Thank you,
Of course.
Zoe, to put this all together, and thank you for introducing the basic differences. And you guys, feel free to get in touch. Thank you so much. Bye.